and welcome to Global Business Report on Arise News. Today, the story is the scramble for wealth under the ground and the race for power above it. A glimpse of a hidden economy. The trapped South African miners afraid to come up in case they lose their loot. Illegal mining costs $500 million a year. Ethiopia wants to rival South Africa and the DRC as a megawatt mogul in the market. We speak to the ambassador on his country's major investment in renewable energy. And with Wall Street closed, emerging stocks continue to surge as China's lending hits new records. I'm Michael Wilson in London. It's Monday, the 17th of February. It's still not clear how many illegal miners are hiding underground, trapped but refusing to come to the surface in an abandoned gold mine in South Africa. 10 came up and were arrested after rival miners blocked their normal exit in the town of Benoni, just outside Johannesburg. The illegal mining sector is estimated to cost $500 million a year in lost taxes. It's dangerous, it's unregulated, and often uses workers from outside South Africa. Arise News' Heather Scott reports.
Illegal miners resurface from a gold mine in Benoni, with South African authorities no clearer on how many more are trapped in the mine shaft. 11 miners are being detained and questioned by police as authorities attempt to find out how many more men are trapped, with some sources suggesting it could be as high as 200. The men are believed to have become trapped on Saturday morning when a rival group of illegal miners stole some of their gold haul and then blocked the shaft with rocks in their wake.
This was a closed shaft. It was closed with the concrete slabs, deliberately so to prevent people from entering. But they have somehow managed to open up a hole on the side. And currently, I think we are able to talk to the people that are trapped inside there. And we are enlarging the hole so that we can be able to leave them out of the shaft.
Illegal mining of abandoned shafts is common in South Africa, attracting those who hope to excavate and sell the remaining gold deposits. Fatal accidents are common, and underground battles between rival groups have been reported. The remaining trapped miners are staying underground because they fear arrest and do not want to relinquish the gold they've found. They're demanding promises that they will not be arrested if they leave the mine.
More, I'm joined by John Mayer from investment bank SP Angel, where he's their mining industry analyst. They call it the new gold rush. Did you see it like that?
Well, it is a bit like that. Informal miners can go in and very effectively work some of these underground areas, particularly in the upper levels where gold has been left behind by mechanised mining from years gone past.
How much is left? I mean, and why is it left behind?
Well, in reality, there are millions of ounces of gold left behind, but the big mining companies are focusing on richer areas which tend to be deeper underground.
So, in other words, the word gets about, and presumably it's an informal organised crime, is it? Or indeed organised salvage from those mines?
It is organised salvage, but in South Africa it is a crime. And in most countries it's a crime to operate this sort of informal mining because it's dangerous. And when things go wrong, the state has to go in and rescue these guys. So, well, and also, let's not forget, they're not paying any tax, for example.
Yeah, sure. So they reckon that this is losing South Africa's economy about $500 million a year. In the scheme of things, A, how would anybody know? And B, in the scheme of things, is that about right, do you think?
It's difficult to put a number on it, but on the one hand, yes, the economy is losing money in that taxation and royalties are not getting paid. But if we look at it another way, people are earning a living out of this, and I think we shouldn't be too quick to condemn what they're doing. Yes, it's dangerous, but it's their choice to go in and eke out the gold that is there. They know the risks that they're taking. Unfortunately, and very sadly in many cases, gangs of people are perhaps forcing miners to go in, perhaps not entirely within their will, to pay off loans and debts and for family circumstances. So it's not all a happy-go-lucky story.
What do they do with the gold once they've got it out? Because obviously it needs all the industrial processes doing to it, doesn't it?
They're pretty good at extracting the gold, and they get this in a number of ways. They are either chipping it off the face, They know which are the rich grades of ore, and Benoni, where this mine is, was quite a rich mine, and in fact there are plans by Western companies to go in and reopen those Benoni mines. There are other ways of doing it. Almost the traditional way of having a fleece that traps gold, the golden fleece. Or in fact, in the modern era, we tend to use a denim, which is particularly good for trapping grains of gold.
Just tell us about that. How does that work?
Well, if you put a piece of denim, as in your jeans, into a sluice where water, which is gold-bearing, runs over it, then the denim will trap flakes of gold. You can burn that denim at the end of the shift or wash the gold out of it. Or you might just find areas of high-grade gold in just pockets within the mine, typically within a place within a water pump, for example. Now,
we know, just away from the illegal stuff, we know that the mining industry is having problems in South Africa, but this tends to be platinum at the moment. But then again, there's an agreement running out for gold, isn't there? Do you think the industry is in a bad way in South Africa?
It's not in a terrible way, but it is struggling to some degree, and I think we should give credit to the mining companies that work very hard to keep these mines open. Yes, they've had to close some higher grade shafts. That's increased unemployment. That increases pressure within the townships. But South African unemployment's a pretty high number anyway. And so there are lots of workers looking at different ways of trying to eke out a living. On the platinum mines, I'm less sympathetic. Yes, they have some grievances, but I think that's more to do with the loans that have been made outside the mines, and then the loan sharks go to the courts. They get a court order against the miners' salaries, and then that money is paid directly back to the agents that made those loans. Of course, the miners get naturally upset about this because they don't really understand the loans that they're signing up to at the time, and there are lots of family pressures on these guys. So I am concerned about the whole situation, and I think, unfortunately, the platinum mining industry bears the brunt of it.
John Mayer, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Now, Tito Mboweni, the former governor of the South African Reserve Bank, has stood down from his post as chairman of Anglo Gold Ashanti, the world's third largest producer of the metal. Mr Mboweni said the move was because of what he described as an increasing portfolio of professional commitments. He'll be replaced by the non-executive director, Sifi Pitiana. Mr Mboweni is a member of the ANC National Executive Committee, and there's been speculation he could take a government post after South Africa's election later this year. Now, at midday today, the JSE All-Share was above 47,000 again and is now eyeing the previous record. It's due to a remarkable improvement in the sentiment towards emerging markets the last week or two. It was only 2 months ago that the JSE suffered its longest losing period since 2004, when the index suffered 8 days of consecutive losses, much lower than Monday morning, in fact. Last Monday morning, down 5.5%. In Nigeria, Guinness announced a 32% drop in first-half profits, which pushed the stock in Lagos down nearly 5%. The rand was trading close to its highest level in 4 weeks, while gold hit a 3.5-month peak this morning, again due to an improvement in confidence in emerging markets and the effect of the unexpected interest rate rise in the rand last month. Gold advanced to its highest level, as we were just saying, as a suspicion that the US economy will show increased demand for the precious metal as a safe haven. Silver headed for its longest run of gains since 1968, all because US industrial production fell unexpectedly. According to one bank, gold will establish a new range well above $1,300 an ounce. Now, Wall Street traders taking a day off for President's Day, so straight on to Europe, where stocks had a positive trading day on the back of a record new credit in China, which is taken as being good for the second biggest economy in the world. And this is on the back of their biggest weekly gain this year. But it's still a fairly quiet day. The Wall Street's finest not at their desks. The new Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has an ambitious programme of economic reform ahead of him, but so far the markets appear to have reacted favourably. So far, Italian 10-year bonds are down to an 8-year low of 3.64%. The yen weakened as Japan's economy expanded less than forecast, but sterling rose to its strongest level in 4 years on rising house prices, but fell against the euro ahead of employment, retail sales and inflation numbers out this week. Ethiopia has an ambitious plan to make itself one of Africa's largest power exporters. The project will boost Addis Abeba's exports, allow it to develop industries that have suffered from electricity shortages and turning cheap power and bringing it to 91 million Ethiopians. But the multi-billion-dollar project is not without its controversies. Arise News' Will Took reports.
Addis Ababa is preparing to announce its master plan to transform Ethiopia's power industry. Currently, most Ethiopians live on less than $2 a day, and only half have access to electricity. Meanwhile, factory output is hampered by frequent blackouts. But it's hoped the African Union-backed plan will change all that. The Power Hub plan will take 25 years to complete, at a cost of $22 billion. But when it's finished, it has the potential to generate revenues of $1 billion per year. Ethiopia has made investment in alternative energy a central pillar of its power plans. It has no gas or coal power stations, so the vast majority of its electricity will be generated by solar, hydro, geothermal and wind technology.
If you come in 10 years and 15 years, I'm sure Ethiopia will not be at that time developing country in wind, but one of the countries who utilized wind to its economic development.
Officials say that when running at capacity, the renewable energy sector could generate as much as 60,000 megawatts. That will boost the continent's total output by 50% and make Ethiopia one of Africa's largest electricity exporters. Ethiopia plans to increase its power exports to Djibouti, Kenya and Sudan, and establish new grid links to South Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania and even to Yemen via a cable under the Red Sea. But the plans aren't being met with universal approval. This $4.6 billion Grand Renaissance Dam project on the Blue Nile has strained relations with Cairo. Egypt fears the dam will restrict the flow of water into the Nile, and so farmers downstream will struggle to irrigate their fields. And it's not clear how much money the Ethiopian government will receive. French and Icelandic companies have already spent billions on the country's renewable energy sector. With heavy investment, international companies are expected to demand low taxes and royalty payments in return. Will Took, Arise News.
For more, we're joined by His Excellency Bahanu Kebede, the Ethiopian ambassador to the UK. Ambassador, good evening to you. We made the point at the end of that little piece there that there's been a lot of investment from outside. How quickly will this have to happen to make sure that the income from the schemes, when they're completed, goes back into Ethiopia?
First of all, the investment that is taking place in Ethiopia is from Ethiopia itself. And for example, if you say the Renaissance Dam is completely financed by Ethiopia, it is to the tune of $4.5 billion. And 32% of the work has been completed. If you take Gilgal Gibe, almost 70% is financed by Ethiopia. The rest of the dams which we have constructed previously are financed by Ethiopia. Of course, in the future we need investment in that area. And now, for example, the American company and the Icelandic company are engaged in investing in the geothermal sector. The geothermal, which is to produce about 1,000 megawatt. And the wind energy, the French have invested in Ashagoda area in the northern part of Ethiopia, which produces about 122 or 23 megawatt. And of course, we can produce more. I think this year, until 2015, we can produce about 500 megawatts from wind energy. I think this is going to be the highest wind turbine energy source.
Now, one of the things about wind is, as everybody knows, you know, if it's windy, you can pass on. It's very difficult to store. But I think you've worked out a sort of timetable, haven't you, with the countries neighbouring, that they would take it at times of low demand from you.
Yes,
right?
yes, we have been working closely with our neighbouring countries. The infrastructure, whether road, energy, railway, it has a regional dimension. We strongly believe, as a country that has come out from interstate and intrastate conflict, the only language that brings about peace is infrastructure integration within the region. So we're going to supply electricity to Kenya, to Sudan, to Djibouti, and furthermore to across the Red Sea.
The dam obviously has been controversial since it was first planned from Egypt and neighbouring countries as well, and it's downstream because it's seen as starving water in countries downstream. How are we with that right now? How are you with that right now?
Absolutely, it's wrong because it was the late Prime Minister Mallas who initiated a panel of experts, international panel of experts, to study the impact of this dam on low riparian countries. The conclusion of the international panel of experts is it is to the benefit of the low riparian countries in terms of reducing the siltation, evaporation, and in fact, on the balance, it will increase world water flow to the low riparian countries. It will regulate the flow of water, and therefore it has no any impact of any significance impact on low riparian countries. In fact, Sudan will benefit more because of the construction of this dam. As you may know, the dam is going to be constructed 40 kilometers away from the common world border between Sudan and Ethiopia. What's going to do is turn the turbine and will flow to the system. There is no water that can be used for irrigation because it is constructed in the northern part. I mean, almost in the border area between Sudan and Ethiopia. So there is no water that can be used in Ethiopia. It will flow back to the system.
How will this, you talk about water, how will the benefits of this actually trickle down, if I can put it like that, to the community, to people, ordinary people in Ethiopia? What are you planning for that?
We have a target by the year 2015, 2016 to supply electricity to 75% of our population. It will feed to the growing manufacturing sector. It will contribute to the productivity of agriculture sector. It will change the whole dynamics in the economic sector of Ethiopia. So there is no doubt that it will enable Ethiopia to join the middle income country by the year 2020. And by the year 2025, our plan is to produce about 35,000 megawatts. The country has generally a potential of producing more than 60,000 megawatts of electricity. And we call ourselves the water tower of Africa. We have hydroelectricity, but people don't know us for drought and famine. But this is a country that has huge water resources.
I have to ask you about Ethiopian Airlines. I mean, that escapade was beyond belief, wasn't it?
Well, it's unexpected, but it's not. We can't put it into the normal definition of terrorism because it's a co-pilot, and the rationale behind it is not clear. It's one of the best airlines in Africa. It flies to 76 destinations, for 43 of which is in Africa. It has never had any security